Oh my gosh, so good to be with you today. This is my favorite part of the week, Sunday. Work with one fabulous redhead, and there's going to be another one showing up real soon. Before we get rolling today, I just want to give a shout out to our guests that are joining us today, and also some special guests that are with us here right there by Reverend Rick Horsey and his partner and wife Marlene. If you would just stand and wave. I give a shout out to Rick, Reverend Rick now, because he graduated in June from Unity Urban Ministerial School and was ordained at the beginning of June. And beautiful service, beautiful commencement speech, wonderful journey. And I know too well what that journey's like. So that's why I want to just give a special shout out for you saying yes to the call and yes to ministry and yes to unity. Such an empowerment in our world and such a message. So thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing friends. And Marlene, thank you for being here too. Yes. So I'm going into spiritual toolbox essentials today, and so I always bring you some things that you can take home. Take home, put them in your pocket, take them home. So today will not be any different. It's the core teachings of Jesus. But one of the core teachings of Jesus that I'm not going to talk about today, that I want to couch it with, I promise I'll get there. I'm on this journey right now, of we have to remember to laugh. If you looked at Daily Word yesterday, did you see that Daily Word was fun? And Reverend Veronica, when she's here, she often talks about play. So we've got to remember that. You know, in the traumatic experience that all of us have had at different times, but also collectively what we've experienced for a period of time, we've got to remember that belly laugh. That, you know, when you hurt your ribs, you know, when you get with friends and you're laughing so hard, maybe you're watching a show and you're just doubled over with laughter. Remember to do that, because that is self-care, a spiritual essential to do. And so one of the masters of comedic timing is Lucille Ball. And I want to just bring you a snippet of her. You'll see her in just a minute, but I'm going to go ahead. I always practice vulnerability with the classes that I teach. I'm going to do this. So bucket list is checked. It's going to happen right now. You're going to experience it. Anybody remember Lucy's commercial? Okay. I don't know what Lucy would say about this, but here goes. Here's our ad spot for today, Unity on Greenville. Hello, friends. Are you tired, run down, listless? Do you poop out at parties? Are you unpopular? Well, all your answers can be found in this little bottle. Vita, Meta, Vegemin. That's right, you can spoon your way to health and join the thousands of happy, peppy people and get a great big bottle of this stuff. It's so tasty, too. Just like candy. I don't know what Lucy would think about it. There's the original, if you saw that. I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone that was a different generation, and I was telling her about happy, peppy people and get a great big bottle of this stuff, and she said, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, oh, that's right, not everyone may know that, but Lucy kind of transcends time, don't you think? Anytime she pops up, that comedic timing, I mean, she was a master at what she did, a businesswoman, a director, and also the amazing comedy. Still, when she comes on, I may be watching something else and it'll pop on and I'll just get lost in an episode. It's pretty classic. And so I have done that in my lifetime, a minister on a pulpit in a church and did a Lucy commercial. Check. Yes. The whole purpose of this was when I was thinking about the core teachings of Jesus, I created an acronym about 14 years ago because there are so many teachings and I wanted to really get them in a linear thought in my head so I could actually apply them to daily life and to my own spiritual work. And so what kept coming up for me was L.A.F.F. And those are the ones I'm going to talk about today. And so it's laugh. And I thought, but you know, laughter. A spiritual teaching is laughter. The Buddha talks about laughter. And whether you're aligned with Jesus as your master teacher, elder, brother, way shower, or not, the spiritual teachings, the core teachings that you can take out of that are powerfully important. And that's what today's about. I've noticed that the happiness factor, whether I was working on ministry teams in the ministry world or in the corporate sector, I would always bring in play and fun to whatever we were working on. A task, a heavy issue, something that's going on. You're assured that there's going to be some fun in there if I'm part of the team. I think our board president, Reverend Sandra Dela Cruz, knows that there's going to be at least a laughter or two if we're on a call together about something, no matter what we're working on. And I think friends and family have known that about me over the years. And so as I thought about Jesus' core teachings, I just wanted to bring in that laughter also. So how divine that L.A.F.F. would end up being that acronym. Lucy was a master at her comedic timing, and we all have various areas in which we get masterful at. We just heard masterful music and creative talent and music and writing and creativity, and we all have that. And in Jesus' teachings, I like to really see that anything that he taught can be applied to anything we're working on in our lives. Anything that we're working on. So I want to begin with reminding you, my favorite scripture is Matthew 5:14, and that's "You are the light of the world." And that was a call, but it was also a reminder and an action step for us to remind ourselves that we are that, each one of us, and to step forward and know that that light is shining brilliantly all the time. So our first L in the teachings of Jesus, the L, is going to be across all world religions. It's something we all know and we speak of often, and that's love. Love is at the core of who we are. Love is who we are. Love is who we know, and we are called to be in every single aspect of our life. In John 13:34 through 35, now also found in Mark and Matthew and Luke, a new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another, and by this all will know you are my disciples, if you love one another. Now that sounds great, but I know the application is a different story. It's a big ask. Because I know in those hard places and those challenging people, sometimes we have to really work on, I am supposed to love. That is who we are. Now that doesn't release accountabilities. It doesn't release behaviors, but at the core of who someone is, they are love, I am love, and we are love. And if we meet on that ground, on that core teaching, we can do mighty things. We can move mountains. So I love that love is that first beginning of that core teaching that runs throughout the scriptures. Course in Miracle fans. How many Course in Miracle folks do we have? Yeah, quite a few. So I love what the Course says. That everything is either love or a call for love. Powerful. Just think about that when you're in those challenging circumstances. And this is true that everything we encounter is one or the other. And I think about whether it's local or global, and I think of a scenario, and if I bring myself back to that principle and practice, I can truly begin to see it. And we know, especially in New Thought and Unity, that we create a shift in the collective consciousness when we do that work. That's why we're all so vital to this work. And I know sometimes it's a hard ask. And the only way that we can respond to each other is in love and through love. Let's just think of what that might be like if everything was responded in love. Doesn't mean there's not disagreements. Doesn't mean there's not a different way to do things. But what a difference. Core teaching, L. L-A-F-F, L, love. The A, it's a big one. Several of these are big, but the A is ask. It's not a beg. It's an ask. It's a request. Remember that we often talk about asking the divine or asking in prayer. But also remember you can ask a friend. If we see God in each person, you can turn to someone and ask. Ask for support. Ask for help. I need something. And some of us, that's easy. And some of you may be thinking, that's a hard one to do. In the scripture verse, Matthew 7:7, classic, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. So I know that can be hard to do. And I know growing up in my life, I know I always wanted to figure things out. And I've got several projects I could tell you about, I won't tell you about them today, that I thought I could fix plumbing. And no matter how many YouTube videos I watched, I did pretty good, but eventually I needed to ask for help. And I'm going to stereotype guys for right now for a minute, but growing up, where I grew up, my mom had the map out in the front seat, just really figuring it out and saying, well, there's a fruit stand, let's just pull over there. There's a gas station, let's pull over there. My dad, 1 hour, 2 hours, and the complete wrong direction, because he was going to figure it out, not stop and ask for directions. Sound familiar? So if ask is a hard thing to do, find out what that's about. Because sometimes pride gets in the way. I do want to figure things out, and I want to go on that journey to figure it out. But it's also important. And I know that I guess we are like our parents in many ways, because just the other day, you can ask Troy, I was arguing with the navigation system. Janice does that too. So the voice that's set on ours is a female voice, and she was saying immediately to do this U-turn. Like, do a U-turn at your next possible time. And I knew about 2 miles down, I turned right, and it was another direction. And I thought, no, I am not doing a U-turn. That's a complete opposite direction. So I went, and she kept repeating it. And I said, no already, I'm not doing, I'm talking to a navigation system. You don't have to admit it if you've done that. And so here I am, kind of like history's repeating itself. So I go where I know I need to go, and I turn right. Sure enough, she knew something I didn't know. Accident, construction. I spent longer going the way I knew than the way the navigation was taking me. Ask. Asking is also a gift to the person that you ask. When you ask for support, you are asking, but them being able to support you is a gift to them. So it's mutually beneficial. Powerful teaching of Jesus, ask. So we've got our L, love. We've got our A, ask. Now, the F, the first F, faith. We talk a lot about faith. I've done a lot of talks about faith, and that's that elusive faith. It's defined differently for different ones of us. And I want to just invite you, just for a few moments, a couple of silent moments, when you think of faith, not in the definition someone has given you, but in the definition you would give yourself. What is faith? Knowing there's not a right or a wrong, but just how would I define faith? And just think for a moment. Faith. You might find an easy answer, and you also might find you kind of stumble around a little bit because it's got that kind of a movement to it, the faith aspect. I love what Charles Fillmore writes in The Revealing Word. He says that faith is the spiritual assurance of the power to do the seemingly impossible. Now that connects with me really well. Because I know at times in my life, you know it too, where you've seen something on the horizon, you've seen a vision. And that's where I know I'm called to go. And for my students that are, it's cool now, there's more students from Discerning Your Purpose in one sanctuary right now. When you look at that purpose or that direction and you say, oh yeah, that's it, we sometimes get in the way with that mental part of trying to put it together, and that becomes these stumbling blocks. But when we know the formula of what we've moved out of the way, nothing will be impossible for us. I also like the way Charles Fillmore links love and faith. He calls them partners. They're beautifully put together. For those of you that love 12 Powers, these two work real well together. He says, thoughts of condemnation or blame, which is an easy go-to. Brene Brown does a lot of work around blame, and resistance to something, it's got to be released. And then you declare divine love, and then nothing in our faith will be unhindered. So when you think about that vision or that purpose or where you're going, and yet you're holding something, whatever that something is, and you haven't quite worked that out, it's a stumbling block to this, whatever this might be. So we've got love, we've got ask, and we've got our faith. And I saved the best for last, the final F. Now this is sometimes a heavy one. Forgiveness. Throughout the Gospels, this is the message that's carried. Jesus' teachings on forgiveness are powerful. And he led by example throughout everything that he did. They were genuine because he forgave those that hurt him in powerful ways. We know those stories. Jesus' teachings on forgiveness played such a major theme throughout his life. And it was clear that forgiveness is a major theme in our life. We've got to release and let go. And it's a wonderful song to sing. But the work is something different. Sometimes it takes us a minute or two to work on forgiveness, or a month, or a year, or a lifetime. But it's some work that's put there. The mind, in Charles Fillmore does some work on the dynamics for living. And I'm not necessarily with the whole 7 conditions for effectual prayer or true prayer, but there's one in there that's so wonderful. And it's the 7th piece, the 7th step. He says the mind must let go of every unforgiving thought. And I do believe that's a stumbling block for us. If we've got something we're holding on to, how can we move on to something else? It's work. You know, all of this is spiritual principles at work. It's our 5th principle. It's applying and working everything that we know and do. Each and every 7-something billion of us have a path. And no 2 paths are alike. So what may look like a wrong process, or why are they going that way or that direction or that decision, or why did they do this or that choice, might actually be what that person needs. That's their path. And I love what Marianne Williamson wrote, and I believe it's in Return to Love. I'm not sure. But she wrote, God didn't put us here to monitor other people's process. Amen? We do get into judginess, don't we? Yeah. Depending on where you're at on Myers-Briggs, I know I do. But it's for each person to follow their path. And again, all of these, love, ask, faith, forgiveness, is not about excusing behaviors or accountabilities, but it's about doing your work and holding that high watch. Prayer chaplains know this, holding that high watch. While this is the story that's going on, I see a higher vision. I know a higher truth for this particular story. So whatever we're doing, we know this is the Christ essence of Jesus, navigating the human and divine, this Christ application in our lives. And we all have that. It's in our toolbox, now added to your toolbox to carry with you. And I think you can put those in your pocket. Will you be able to remember L.A.F.F? Love, ask, faith, forgiveness. Apply it in your work. And I know that in laughter, the ego rests. When we can be humorous and fun, the ego rests. And what I like to say about the ego, we all have it. It takes over sometimes in our lives and other times not. I would say allow the ego to be safely put in the child seat, in the back seat. Strap the ego in and say, okay, you be safe, you little childlike ego. And give Spirit the keys to the car. We don't want to toss the keys to the kids. You're okay. Give the wheel to Spirit. And I'd like to say, and I'll just go on the record, that I think through all the times and the disciples and the times in which he lived, we hear those stories about Jesus' teachings and the times in which he lived. Come on, this guy must have been hilarious too, right? Just think about it. Traveling and wandering and having experiences. Don't you have them? Yes, you do. Of course he did. And I found this beautiful image of the laughing Jesus. I know you've all seen that. And so we have one at Unity on Greenville, and it was back in the child's area. And I brought it up. It's on the front table when you walk into the sanctuary today. So I brought that out because I love that image and that depiction of someone that was a spiritual teacher but also had humor and levity and fun, because we need that in this work. So let's take our core teachings, love, ask, faith, forgiveness, into our toolbox. And remember, you're the light. You're the light. You're called. So every time I'm with you, I'll always remind you. Are you listening? You matter. You matter. Joining us online or at a later time watching the recording, you matter. You are sacred. The work that you do is powerfully important, and I'm so glad to be a part of the work in this world. And if you haven't heard it today, you know what I'm about to tell you, don't you? Do you already know what I'm about to tell you? Are you getting used to it? Yes, Judy. You are loved. God bless you. Thank you. So let's laugh. Rachel?